Kamala Harris and Joe Rogan, why her 2025 podcast Snub is trending again. The political landscape of the United States in 2024 was defined by a whirlwind of unconventional campaign strategies, with podcasts emerging as a pivotal battleground for reaching voters. Among the most discussed missteps of Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign was her failure to appear on the Joe Rogan Experience, the world's most popular podcast. This decision, detailed in a new NBC book by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes titled Fight, Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House, has reignited debates on X in 2025 about Harris's campaign strategy, her struggle to connect with young male voters, and the contrasting success of Donald Trump's podcast-driven campaign, reportedly influenced by his youngest son, Barron Trump. This article delves into the reasons behind Harris's snub of Joe Rogan, the implications for her appeal to key demographics, the role of podcasts in the 2024 election, and why this topic continues to trend in 2025. The context: podcasts as the new political battleground in 2024, the traditional media landscape, dominated by television interviews, newspaper endorsements, and primetime debates, was no longer the sole avenue for reaching voters. Podcasts, with their long-form, conversational format and loyal audiences, became a critical tool for candidates to connect with niche demographics. According to Edison Research, 47% of Americans listen to podcasts monthly in 2024, with younger audiences particularly engaged. The Joe Rogan Experience, hosted by comedian and UFC commentator Joe Rogan, stood out as the crown jewel of this medium, boasting an estimated 14.5 million listeners per episode, predominantly young men. Rogan's platform was unique. It offered a raw, unfiltered space where guests could discuss everything from politics to UFOs, often for 3 hours or more. His audience, largely male, 80%, and young, 50% aged 18 to 34, was a demographic that both candidates desperately needed to sway in a tightly contested election. For Donald Trump, appearing on Rogan's show was a no-brainer, aligning with his campaign's focus on non-traditional media. For Kamala Harris, however, the decision was fraught with complications, ultimately leading to a missed opportunity that many Democrats later labeled a critical error. The Harris campaign's botched Rogan appearance. The details of Harris's failed attempt to appear on the Joe Rogan Experience are chronicled in Fight, which provides an insider look at the chaotic final months of her 2024 campaign. According to the book, Harris's team recognized the need to reach young male voters, who were leaning heavily toward Trump in polls. A Pew Research survey from October 2024 showed a 16-point gap among male voters, with 56% favoring Trump compared to 40% for Harris. Rogan's podcast, with its massive male audience, was seen as a potential game-changer. In mid-October 2024, Harris's campaign officials met with Rogan's team to discuss a possible appearance. Reuters reported that the talks were serious, with both sides exploring logistics. However, negotiations broke down over scheduling and format disputes. Rogan insisted that the interview take place in his Austin, Texas, studio and last at least 3 hours, consistent with his usual format. Harris's team, wary of committing to such a long, unscripted conversation, proposed a 1-hour interview at a location of their choosing, likely to accommodate her campaign schedule. Rogan rejected these conditions, emphasizing that his goal was to have a nice conversation, to get to know her as a human being. By late October, the Harris campaign confirmed she would not appear on the podcast, citing scheduling conflicts. Rogan clarified on X that the campaign had not entirely passed on the opportunity but that their demands, particularly the 1-hour limit and location change, were unacceptable. After Harris's election loss, some reports suggested an additional reason for the snub: fear of backlash from progressive staffers who viewed Rogan as a controversial figure due to his past statements on COVID-19, vaccines, and transgender issues. Why Harris avoided Rogan. A risk-averse strategy. Harris's decision to skip Rogan's podcast was rooted in a broader campaign strategy that prioritized caution over boldness. Several factors contributed to this choice. Fear of a progressive backlash. Rogan's reputation as a contrarian who occasionally platforms controversial figures made him a lightning rod for criticism. His past endorsement of Bernie Sanders in 2020 had drawn ire from some Democrats, and Harris's team reportedly worried that appearing on his show could alienate her progressive base. This concern was heightened by the polarized political climate, where any association with Rogan could be weaponized on social media. Uncomfortable format. The Joe Rogan Experience is known for its freewheeling, unpredictable conversations, which posed a challenge for Harris. The book Fight notes that Harris struggled in softball interviews during September and October 2024, often appearing rehearsed or evasive. A 3-hour, unscripted session with Rogan, who is not a traditional journalist and often pushes guests to be candid, was seen as a high-risk endeavor. As The Atlantic pointed out, Harris may have feared messing up in a format that rewarded authenticity over polished talking points. Scheduling pressures. The final weeks of the 2024 campaign were a whirlwind for Harris, who was juggling rallies, traditional media appearances, and a late push in swing states. Her team argued that traveling to Austin for a multi-hour podcast was logistically impractical. However, critics like Andrew Yang, who called the decision a gimme missed opportunity, argued that Harris should have prioritized Rogan's massive audience over other commitments. Misjudging the podcast's impact, Harris's campaign underestimated the cultural and political weight of Rogan's platform. While she appeared on podcasts like Call Her Daddy, which targeted young women, and All the Smoke, popular among black men, these shows lacked the universal reach of Rogan's. A YouGov poll from October 2024 found that 14% of respondents would view Harris more favorably if she appeared on Rogan's show, suggesting a potential boost among undecided voters. The young male voter problem. Harris's snub of Rogan was particularly costly because it exacerbated her campaign's struggle to connect with young male voters, a demographic that proved pivotal in 2024. Polls consistently showed Trump outperforming Harris among men, with a significant gender gap. An NBC News poll from October 2024 highlighted a 16-point advantage for Trump among male voters, driven largely by young men aged 18 to 34. Young men, often described as the bro vote, were drawn to Trump's unfiltered style and his appearances on podcasts like Rogan's, Impulsive with Logan Paul, and This Past Weekend with Theo Vaughn. These platforms allowed Trump to project a relatable, masculine persona, discussing topics like UFC, video games, and personal anecdotes. Harris, by contrast, focused on issues like reproductive rights and economic opportunity, which resonated strongly with women but failed to address the kitchen table issues that young men prioritized, such as the economy, border security, and the fentanyl crisis. Lakshya Jain, co-founder of the election analysis site Split Ticket, argued on X that Harris needed Rogan's platform way more than the other way around to address her male voter deficit. By avoiding Rogan, Harris missed a chance to humanize herself to an audience that viewed her as distant or overly scripted. As Newsweek noted, Harris's reliance on traditional media outlets like CBS and NBC, while safe, did little to penetrate the online spaces where young men consumed political content. Barron Trump and Donald Trump's podcast success. While Harris hesitated, Donald Trump embraced the podcast circuit with a strategy reportedly shaped by his 18-year-old son, Barron Trump. According to multiple sources, including Vanity Fair and Poynter, Barron played a key role in advising his father to target non-traditional media outlets popular among Gen Z and young men. Trump himself acknowledged Barron's influence, telling Fox News, "He tells me about all the hot guys, people I've never heard of. He says, 'Dad, that guy is hot.'" Barron's recommendations led Trump to appear on a string of podcasts and YouTube shows, including Impulsive with Logan Paul, which drew millions of views among young male audiences. This Past Weekend with Theo Vaughn, where a viral clip of Vaughn comparing cocaine to turning into an owl amassed 14 million YouTube views. Busts In with the Boys, hosted by former NFL players, where Trump discussed his aversion to football due to guys from bad neighborhoods. The Joe Rogan Experience, a 3-hour conversation that covered everything from UFOs to Trump's grievances about the 2020 election. Trump's Rogan appearance, recorded on October 25, 2024, was a cultural moment, generating 68.7 million YouTube views and dominating social media. Rogan's endorsement of Trump the day before the election further amplified the impact, with his 18 million YouTube subscribers and 14 million Spotify followers giving Trump a direct line to young male voters. Trump's podcast strategy, guided by Barron's understanding of digital culture, allowed him to bypass traditional media gatekeepers and connect with politically disengaged voters. As Vulture noted, Trump mastered the podcast space by embracing its messiness as a proxy for authenticity. Harris's more selective approach, focusing on podcasts with female or minority audiences, left her vulnerable to accusations of being not online enough. The 2025 X debates. Why the snub still matters in 2025. The release of Fight has brought Harris's Rogan snub back into the spotlight, fueling heated discussions on X about her campaign's missteps and her future political prospects. Several factors explain why this topic continues to trend. Post-election autopsy. After Harris's loss to Trump in November 2024, Democrats have engaged in intense soul-searching about what went wrong. The Rogan snub has become a symbol of the campaign's risk-averse approach and failure to adapt to the evolving media landscape. Posts on X, such as one from Dinesh D'Souza claiming Harris avoided Rogan due to a specific topic she didn't want discussed, reflect the ongoing speculation about her decision. Harris's 2025 strategy. As vice president, Harris remains a prominent figure in the Democratic Party, with many speculating about her role in the 2028 election. Critics argue that her 2024 podcast snub highlights a broader disconnect with younger voters, particularly men, that she must address to rebuild her political brand. Ex-users like the FP have warned that if the radical left wing continues to dictate Democratic strategy, the party risks further alienating key demographics. The power of podcasts. The 2024 election underscored the growing influence of podcasts in shaping public opinion. The Conversation described it as the first true podcast election, with Trump's appearances on shows like Rogan's proving more impactful than traditional media interviews. In 2025, as podcasts continue to dominate, Harris's decision to skip Rogan is seen as a missed opportunity to harness this medium's potential. Barron. Trump's cultural moment. Barron's role in Trump's podcast strategy has added an intriguing subplot to the narrative. As a Gen Z figure, Barron's ability to identify hot influencers resonates with younger ex-users, who see him as a savvy operator in the digital space. This contrasts with Harris's perceived aloofness from online culture, amplifying the debate about her campaign's missteps. Gender and misogyny narratives. Some X debates have framed Harris's struggles with young male voters in the context of online misogyny. Salon argued that Trump's appeal to the manosphere and men's rights movement tapped into a culture of aggrieved white male entitlement, which Harris struggled to counter. While Harris's supporters argue that systemic biases played a role, critics contend that her avoidance of platforms like Rogan's limited her ability to challenge these narratives head-on. The broader implications for 2025 and beyond. The Harris-Rogan saga raises broader questions about the future of political campaigning and the Democratic Party strategy. As podcasts and social media continue to shape voter perceptions, candidates must navigate a fragmented media landscape where authenticity and accessibility are paramount. For Harris, the 2024 election exposed vulnerabilities that she must address if she seeks higher office again. Engaging young men. Democrats must develop a strategy to reach young male voters without alienating their progressive base. Appearing on platforms like Rogan's, even if controversial, could help humanize candidates and counter the appeal of figures like Trump. Embracing risk. Harris's risk-averse approach in 2024, exemplified by the Rogan snub, contrasted with Trump's willingness to engage with any platform, no matter how unconventional. Future Democratic candidates may need to take calculated risks to break through the noise. Leveraging digital culture. Barron. Trump's influence on his father's campaign highlights the importance of understanding digital trends. Democrats must invest in advisors who can navigate the online spaces where younger voters congregate. Balancing traditional and new media. While Harris prioritized traditional outlets like CBS's 60 Minutes, Trump's focus on podcasts and YouTube shows proved more effective in reaching disengaged voters. A balanced approach that combines both could maximize reach. Conclusion. Kamala Harris's decision to skip the Joe Rogan Experience in 2024, detailed in the 2025 NBC book Fight, remains a flashpoint in discussions about her campaign's failures and future prospects. By avoiding Rogan's platform, Harris missed a chance to connect with young male voters, a demographic that swung heavily toward Trump. The contrast with Trump's podcast success, guided by Barron Trump's digital savvy, underscores the evolving role of non-traditional media in politics. As X debates in 2025 highlight, the Rogan snub is more than a tactical error, it's a symbol of the Democratic Party's struggle to adapt to a changing media landscape. Whether Harris can learn from this misstep and embrace bolder strategies in the future will determine her political legacy in an era where podcasts are no longer a niche but a necessity.